Are you overwhelmed by the challenge of personalizing communication for thousands of students? That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. From nudging prospective students to guiding those already on their journey, AI assistants don't just automate, they write, build, and optimize every step of your digital campaigns. Discover how at element451.com/AI team.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to High School to Higher Ed, a father-daughter perspective, a special 3-part Pulse Check miniseries brought to you by Enrollify. I'm Emma Cavanagh, a 9th grader just starting high school.
And I'm Kevin Cavanagh, Emma's dad, and an enrollment management professional for the last 30 years.
This series is about seeing the college admissions process through a different perspective, mine. We'll explore how young people are beginning to perceive college, the messages they're getting from counselors, family, and even colleges themselves.
By stepping into these early conversations, we hope to offer some real insights for enrollment managers and marketers, things you can't find in the data, but in real everyday moments.
Let's dive into today's episode.
This is episode 3. Do 9th graders care about college yet? I'm your co-host, Kevin Cavanagh, and I'm here with my co-host and daughter, Emma Cavanagh. How are you, Emma?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So this is episode 3 of 3. This is the end of the road for you and I.
This is it.
After this episode, our podcast careers might be coming to an abrupt and immediate close. But it's been fun.
It has.
First episode, we talked about your exposure to colleges before you started high school. Then we talked about some of the formal platforms that you're using in the form of Niche and College Board and Naviance. Last episode, we had a lot of fun dissecting the good, the bad, and the ugly of some communications that you've been getting. And this episode, we're just rounding things out and kind of giving one final perspective to our listeners on the college perspective of a 9th grader. And I think you have some questions for me. I have some questions for you. We really just want to get a sense of, do you really care about college right now? Do you care about all this messaging that's coming your way? But before we begin every episode, we talk about the national holiday, right?
Yep.
So this is a big one. It's actually technically, I don't know if this is considered a national holiday, but it's a holiday. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
So what are you dressing up for Halloween this year?
It's a surprise.
I'm your dad. I'm not supposed to have surprises for Halloween. And by the way, I've been like your Halloween partner since you were 3 years old. So what are you going to hit? Like, so a few years ago, you were Mary Poppins and I went as Bert. One year you went as a NASA astronaut and I dressed up as the Milky Way. So whatever you seem to come up with, I figure out a way to match you. And you're giving me what, like no time to come up with a corollary costume this year?
Bring your creative juices. You're going to have to come up with something fast.
Well, speaking of that, that's an excellent segue. I found the costume that is scarier for any enrollment manager or anybody in marketing or anybody in higher ed than Freddy Krueger or Chucky or any other horror movie. I've got the scariest costume for higher ed people, hands down. You ready for it?
I don't know, am I?
I am the free application for federal student aid, the scariest form in higher education. So today is also, fun fact, National Knock Knock Joke Day, which, first of all, I think the poor knock knock jokes got screwed a little bit because their holiday is the same day as Halloween. Do you have any good knock knock jokes?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad I'm your co-host?
Oh, very good. That's pretty good, Emma. I didn't think you were going to have one. I did a little research to see if there were any higher ed related knock knock jokes, and they were all pretty terrible. So I figured we'd bury knock knock holiday with Halloween this year. We want to get into a little bit of the characteristics that matter most to you. So let's talk through that. Again, I think you've got some questions for me, and I've got some questions for you. But just kicking off this last episode on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think you and your ninth grade friends are really thinking about college at this point in your high school careers?
I'd say like maybe a 2. It's not very much. I think we're mostly just focused on getting the good grades, as I've said, and the resumes and building that up towards college itself.
What are the first things that come to mind when people talk about a college or colleges or going to college? Like what really pops in when people talk to you about that kind of stuff?
I definitely think about like the majors at colleges. I'm interested in journalism, so I definitely want there to be journalism incorporated in the school. And then definitely its prestige is something that I'm focused on because I do want to go to a strong school and work hard academically in high school. And then also fencing because I fence and not every school has a fencing team, so I think a school that has a fencing team would really stand out to me.
Yeah.
Um yeah,
So prestigious school. Who's paying for that?
you.
Oh,
How do colleges figure out what students like me want in a school that at such an early stage?
yeah. We talked about this a little earlier on one of the other episodes. I don't know that everybody does. I think we're all operating on a kind of grand stage here of uh, broadly trying to communicate to students to get a little bit of rent free space in your brain. They want you to think highly of their school and remember their school more than anything else. So I don't know that there's a lot of specificity. I think colleges that start the outreach now are blanketing students pretty broadly. They'll do so using the tools that they have, like the Naviance, like the Insights, and College Board and otherwise, to get some of those light messages out to you so that you get some connectivity with them. But they're not really, there shouldn't be a whole lot of big push right now for you to be thinking too much about specific things on schools. Emma, do you think there is something that colleges need to have that they're not talking about right now?
What I've noticed across of like all of the colleges advertising is most of them really need to talk about ninth grade, like right now, and like being specific to each grade. Because I think right now, as a ninth grader, I'm really focusing on adjusting to high school. So maybe that one email that I mentioned that I got last episode of the tips, I think that's really helpful. And then in 10th grade, maybe it's more taking some more AP challenging classes, like focusing on what students could do then, or junior year with SATs and SAT prep and talk about that. I think gearing it towards each grade will be very helpful because it makes students feel like, I guess, they care more about where you are at the moment. And I think that's what like the most important thing is for colleges to advertise.
So almost like a little customer service. Like we're not asking you to apply. We're not asking you to come to open house. We're not asking you to schedule an audition. We just want to say, here, these are top 5 things that you should be thinking about as a ninth grader right now. And not a hard sell, but here's the top 5 tips. And thanks and good luck from your friends at yada 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 university, right? Like it's just a nice touch. That's what you're looking for.
And I think it'll put the college in my like head, and like I'll remember that oh, this one college gave me this advice and it was really helpful, so I like might want to look into it more and see what the college is about and see if it's a good fit for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Are there characteristics that you think students should care about more but don't realize yet?
Not so much characteristics, Emma. I think for me, as an enrollment person, we talk quite a bit about match and making sure students find the right school for them. And as much as we've been a little critical of schools outreaching to students as early as 8th or ninth grade, which you've seen some of that. I do think it's important that students do their research on these schools, because as we mentioned in episode 1, most students only know some big schools, some really name brand schools, the really elite schools, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of colleges, and they all do a really great job of serving their students. And I think it's incumbent upon the students and their parents or caregivers to help them explore schools and do the research, because there are schools out there that you have never heard of, but are going to be popping up on your radar, later in your high school career. And there might be schools that you don't find out about until after you graduate from college, when you meet people in, the workforce, and you find out that they got a great education at some school in California, or, in the Midwest, or someplace that you've never heard of, but it was a really great fit for them and it helped them to become very successful. So I really hope that, as you mentioned last episode, you didn't really check your emails very often, and you don't think your friends do either. And that's fine. But I do think it's important for students at some point to start seeing some of these messages, learning about these schools, so that they're not building a list that's just the popular 10 or 15 or 20 schools, or just the top 30 schools on US News and World Report, but they're digging into schools on characteristics that's important to them and their persona, because they're the ones that have to be there for 4 years, living, sleeping, eating, going to school, studying, enjoying themselves. You've got to live there. So it's really important to find a school that meets the mark. And that's why these colleges are getting that communication out there, so that you learn about them and get a feel for them early on. So no, not so much characteristics. It's really more of a sales pitch for students to really dig in and learn about schools. So if you had a chance, if I told you to close your eyes and think about sort of the perfect school right now, you're in ninth grade, you're not really thinking about college all that much, but you've got me, talking to you about the work that I do, and you've got some exposure because of the Naviance and otherwise. But if you were to close your eyes and say, "This is what I'm looking for in the perfect school," what are some of the things that you're looking for?
So I think location is important, as well as I'd like to be in a big city, and I think also what would reflect that is it being relatively big school, because I feel like like some school campuses themselves are kind of like small cities, and having a big school kind of is similar to a big city, and I think that's just kind of the environment that I'd like to be in. And I'd also like it to be like very pretty, and there's lots of sights to see, and just walking around campus is. Why are you laughing?
Because it's just like pretty, like I just want a pretty place.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I want to live somewhere where like it's like very nice to walk around in the morning, go to your class. It's just nice to see. And then I'd also like there to be a popular journalism program, because I'm very interested in journalism. And I also think that having a popular sport, like a very strong football team with lots of traditions, is very fun and cool, because it brings those traditions and that like sense of camaraderie every game day. I think that's just like a really cool concept.
Okay, that's fair. So if we're trying to encourage enrollment marketers and managers how to communicate to ninth graders, which is sort of the theme of the podcast, sounds to me like, as opposed to some of the really dense uh, mailers that you've gotten, or emails that are really long, or things that are not relevant to you, like coming to visit for open house or auditions or things like that, if colleges just kept it simple and focused on telling you and students your age location and distance from home, like the type of environment that the school's in, like urban, suburban, or rural, the size of the school, if it's pretty or not. I don't know how they do that. Like sending pictures of bushes, I guess, from the last episode. Uh,
But they have to be
ma-
pretty bushes.
Pretty bushes. Majors that are relevant to the student. And you like the idea of what I would call big time sports. So that would be either football, or more likely, more so football, but also for some students, a good basketball team that
Mhm.
they can get behind. If college is honed in on those 6 elements, right now for ninth graders, you think that hits the mark pretty well compared to some of the other more convoluted messaging that you got, right?
Yeah, I think like sharing that information is giving a broad sense of what the school is like, and it kind of like puts it in my brain like, oh, this school looks like it might be a good fit for me, but I'm not being bombarded with some of the information that some of these like longer emails and mail that have been sent are giving.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So we talked about the characteristics. So if we think that these characteristics are important to kids like you, and we assume that many of the existing marketing messages aren't connecting effectively to ninth graders, which I think you've figured out pretty quickly, and I would generally agree. Not to say that I'm great at it either, but seeing the things that other colleges are doing, I'm like, well, that's not so hot. This is just an opportunity, a podcast to build people up. We're not looking to tear people down. But if what we're doing as an industry is not hitting the mark, let's spend a little bit of time, you and me, talking about how colleges might be able to break through some of the clutter and communicate, with kids like you. So, based on what you've been seeing from schools so far, do you think that colleges understand how to communicate with kids your age, or are they missing the mark?
I think most colleges are missing the mark. I think they might send out specific emails that are helpful, but it's not like the overall theme that they're sending out or their like messaging is not helpful. I think they're not marketing in the ways that they should be. I think that emailing and mail is not necessarily very helpful anymore just because I'm not checking the mail from our house. You are. I'm not doing going through the mail. I'm not really looking at my emails. So I think focusing on social media more might be very helpful to advertise, and I think that's kind of more innovative, and that's where teenagers are now, and that's where teenagers spend most of their time. And I also think focusing on, again, the age appropriate stuff is very important because I'm not looking for information about some open house. I think that's a very common thing that I've been seeing a lot of emails being sent about. It's just I'm being bombarded with reminders to apply for an open house, but the open houses aren't things that I want to go to. So I'm getting so many emails about things that aren't like applying to me, and that's just not helpful.
Okay, fair enough.
So, why do you think so many colleges still rely on emails and brochures to reach students when they don't seem to work anymore?
Right. So you don't open emails and you take the print mail for 5 seconds and kind of throw it away, right? So I agree that colleges are still relying on that. Number one, they can probably, and we can probably articulate that, at least for some student populations, they're effective. And maybe not effective for ninth graders, but uh, students that are older, that are getting more serious about the college search process and paying attention a little bit more, are probably opening those emails with a little more regularity. So it works for the older group. So I think, why not send it to the younger group is sort of theme number one. I think we talked about how that could be hurting them, because if your generation doesn't do emails and they're getting carpet bombed with emails, it might not be a good look. But that's number one, probably why they do it. It's working for the older group and maybe not for the younger group. I think it's also challenging for colleges to break away from old habits. There are always going to be schools that are on the front foot, that are innovative in what they do. There always has been. There's been, every few years, there's new innovations on how to communicate with students. Some things take off, other things, are a dud. But for many colleges, they like to be the school that tries those new things to see if that's a new breakthrough. So some colleges are great at it. On the other end of the spectrum, there are just people that can't break away from how they did things in the past. Mailing things to home, big brochures, big view books, lots of emails, because they don't have innovative team members, or they don't have the resources to think differently or to invest in social media. Um, so that's probably why. Like a perfect example I can give to you is about 10 years ago, I was working at a college that was very heavily reliant on what we call out of home, which means billboards on highways, or advertisements on the sides of buses or advertisements on bus stops or on subway stations or the MTA trains. And I eliminated a lot of it. And there was a bit of an uproar among some people when I did. And they said, we don't see advertising anymore. You're not advertising the school. It's going to hurt enrollment. And most of the people that were telling me that were like 65, 70-year-old people with PhDs and, living, sort of comfortably and not looking to pursue any more education. And I said, right, because you're not my target audience. I don't want to advertise to you because you're not going to be getting a degree from our institution. I'm trying to advertise to a different population of students, and digital advertising allowed me to target those. Now, some of those were high school students, some of those were adult learners, but me being able to really target them with digital was the way for me to move the needle. But that just kind of to answer your question, some schools just can't break out of what they've done, and they've got this political pressure from faculty or boards or otherwise that, hey, we don't see the advertising, so something must not be going right. And they don't appreciate that innovation allows you to be more targeted, and really strong admissions offices and marketing offices know how to target students effectively. So I think that's why some schools just can't break out of the old ways of doing things.
That's really interesting.
Um, so Emma, assuming that these communication strategies from colleges haven't made a significant impact on you, how would you like colleges to interact with you at this stage of high school? So let's talk a little bit about the mediums. You hinted at that a moment ago, but let's just go sort of yes, no, and then you can explain a little bit. If
Okay.
colleges started to text you with some of the similar messages that you've been getting so far, would that be good or bad as a ninth grader?
I would not like that very much. I think with the emails, you're not, at least for my generation and the people that I talk to, we're not checking our emails all the time. So if we don't want to look at that email or that you sent us or whatever, we don't have to, and it's not going to like bother us. But if we have to look at these notifications that are being sent on our phones all day with no way to turn them off, it's very irritating. And considering that one school would send me 2 emails a week, just that one school, consider how many emails or excuse me, how many text messages I would have been getting if I started getting these text messages as advertisements, and I just don't think that students would appreciate that very
All
much.
right, so don't opt into texting. What about real quick digital advertising when you're traveling the internet and you're shopping for Sephora and Stanley mugs and all that other stuff that you do? Are you cool with getting digital advertising display ads on your websites?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's helpful and it's not bothering me, but it definitely catches my attention.
All right, so not as intrusive. What about? I think we covered this, but just to bring it home, um, in-home mail. You like getting mail at home?
No.
Okay.
I think it's not useful. I don't check the mail, and it's just if you're going to keep sending stuff, it's just kind of annoying.
Okay. And we've already killed email to death. So no point in talking about email anymore. And then anything else like YouTube, social media, you think those are good platforms for, because that's where you mentioned before, that's where your generation is. You're on social media, you're on YouTube. So keep going on that. You're okay with
Yeah.
getting that from colleges. Okay. How would you feel about quizzes and, online games or personalized videos, like things that are a little bit, you know, fun, innovative, maybe a little kooky? Would you be cool with that, or do you think that that would adversely impact the brand of the school in your mind?
I think personalization is very important because it makes you kind of feel like you're part of that community, and it gives you like um a really like it makes you feel good, I guess. And so definitely personalization and quizzes, I think just keeping them fun and lighthearted and not like making you like I think just being able to learn about yourself in a more fun way. So nothing too deep or anything like that, but just like fun, lighthearted things, definitely.
Okay. If a college could you be doing one thing right now as a ninth grader, or be pushing something to you in any medium that you think would get your attention? Is there something that you'd be okay with getting, or that you would be interested in right now?
So I think pre-college is very like specific to my age, and it's something that I can do right now. So that's definitely something that colleges should be pushing more and advertising more of.
To bring this home, Emma, the last question on our podcast here. If you could design a perfect communication strategy for a college, for a ninth grader right now, what do you think that would look like?
I think I would send maybe one letter or email at the very beginning when they first come on the mailing list, just to kind of get the college name out there, and then definitely a letter or some sort of mail, like email for a birthday, because that just makes you feel kind of special when someone acknowledges your like special day. And then occasional emails just to keep people thinking about your school, nothing crazy, and then definitely focusing on social media and making some content to go up on that kind of platform.
Okay. So here we are, end of October of ninth grade. You've got a full year to go. You're excited. You're looking forward to,
Looking forward to
banging
it.
this year out. Okay. We'll keep an eye on all this communication that's coming your way. If anything is earth shattering, maybe we'll check back in with everybody and give
Yeah,
them some insights on what you're seeing. Would you be open to doing that?
sure. That'd be
Yeah.
so much fun.
I really have had a lot of fun putting this podcast together with you, honey. I hope you've had a good time too.
This has been a lot of fun.
Good. I think signing off on episode 3 of our podcast, I think it's time to make like a tree and get out of here.
Make like a tree and leave, you idiot.
All right. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. Thank you for listening.
Bye now.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.